Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Lita. I'm a coach and consultant, and I wanted to put this session together not because I'm an expert in AI, but I know I use it daily. So I wanted to get a sense of what I could share with the community, and I'm sure there's tips in here that will benefit others. So feel free to drop resources in the chat, and I will be happy to send them to everybody with the replay. Another just note is if you have questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. And most likely I will kind of coalesce all of the questions towards the end of the session and try to answer all of them. So that way I hope that people who have a question and don't want to forget can put it in the chat and just realize I'll probably address it in the flow of when the moment makes sense. So thanks all for being here. I saw we have folks from Canada, US. It's great to have you all here. So I'm going to share my screen and show you this document that we will be learning with together. So one thing I will also share is I put this session together by asking what questions folks had in the community, and a lot of people sent me questions, and then that's what informed the session. So hopefully it's going to be useful, and when people show up live, they can also add more questions. But one thing that people ask me is like, what's the perspective on AI and how has it shifted? My hot take is no one is really going to get replaced by AI. There's a very few jobs that I think will get replaced by AI. And at the same time, there are people for whom their jobs will get replaced by someone who knows how to use AI well. So that's my perspective. It's a little more optimistic on the AI front. It turns out that this survey that asked people around this time last year around their perspectives on AI, specifically around like art and the creative world, and then asked them again this year, the perspective has been shifting, and a lot of folks are less excited about AI than they were this time last year. So you'll notice all the aspects in Black, like futuristic, innovative, creative, fascinating, cool. Those are like the positives this time last year. And like controversial, not real art, fake, creepy, soulless, the ones in red, are more prevalent in terms of how people feel about it around the creative space this year. So just to say, it's okay if you are on one end of the spectrum where you're like, I love AI, this helps me get back a lot of time on an admin that I was doing. And that's what I hope to share with you in this session. And if you're like, this is ruining my life, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that share your frustration with AI. So all the feels are welcome here. And I just want to show you a way that you can actually use AI to your benefit in your coaching business, in business development for your company. And if you're internal, then I'm sure your company will really benefit from you using AI. And if you're working for yourself, then you will benefit directly. A couple other things. A lot has shifted. Again, this is super new, and I kept changing my notes even till about 10 minutes ago, because there's a lot of there's like a race for all these big and small tech companies to give you the latest and greatest with AI. So now, like, AI this time last year could not generate images. Now it can. Could not generate audio. Now it can. Could not generate video. Now it can. So there's folks who like have created songs, created artwork, and there's obviously ethical implications around that as well. But maybe we'll get into that if we have time. But it's just an interesting thing to note that don't feel behind. All of this is all super new. So I'm trying to give you the latest and greatest of how you can use AI for optimal business development. Cool. So I'll share with you a little bit more about what we're going to talk about, but also there's there's people who send me questions as to, okay, Lita, I'm getting very confused. Like there's all these AI options out there. Which one do I use? So based on today's session, which is about, content generation, maybe lead generation, practical tasks, based on a study that was recently done, again, all of this is like Q1 2024, ChatGPT, the latest version, is still winning just barely versus other models like Claude 3, Gemini Ultra, CoPilot, etc. So I'm a data gal. I have my undergrad was in science, so I try to bring you the data to say, not that I'm personally invested in only using ChatGPT, but for our intents and purposes and what I wanted to talk about today, it's still beating out the rivals. This could change if we talk in 3 months, but that's the focus of our time today will be on ChatGPT. And you'll probably notice I have other tabs with all the other tools, so I'm happy to get into those if people have questions as well. You'll also notice that on summarization, this is where ChatGPT did a lot better than Claude or Gemini Ultra. So that's the focus that we will have today. Cool. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about using ChatGPT. We're going to talk about how you can use it to your benefit, especially in lead generation, business development, just saving 10 to 20 hours a week of maybe admin tasks. So I want to share again in the chat that if you do want these, you will get the replay. And if you want this document, I can share it after the session. I just want everyone to like mono focus because we're going to get into a lot of things. So I feel like 99% of you have already done this, but maybe for the 1% of you who haven't, there's a very clear link that you can go to go to OpenAI, who are the creators of ChatGPT. And all of that is owned by Microsoft. So it can be really confusing because you might hear like Microsoft, you might hear CoPilot. Yes, they also own that, but they own a majority stake in a startup called OpenAI. I know some of the founding team there, and they're brilliant people, and they have a lot of competition. So I will just focus on ChatGPT for today. I feel like you can get a lot done with the free subscription. So if you don't have the paid subscription, which is $20 a month, you're probably only missing out on like 1%, which is that you can't put, 100 pages of text in there and ask it to summarize. I've done that for like tax code, and I just got my taxes filed. So I just wanted to make sure everything was kosher. For that, you need the paid model, which allows you to input more text. And the free model is slightly slower, but really we're talking like milliseconds for an average query. So again, if you're going to ask me, Lita, which one do you recommend? I would say everyone here should start with the free model. And if you're finding that every single day you're hitting the challenges of needing to input more text or wanting to generate images or wanting it to be faster, then pay the $20 a month. Cool. And again, happy to answer questions. So if questions come up for you while we're talking, put them in the chat. And if they're tangential, still put them in the chat, and I will kind of popcorn style go through them at the end. I also am trying to think of people with different like learning propensities. So I know for myself, I have ADHD. So sometimes I like to get an idea out before I forget without typing it out. So if you are the type of person for neurodiversity or other reasons that doesn't like writing, the world is still your oyster because you can set up prompting without typing. Again, literally this tool, ThinkBuddy, I found out about like this week. So if you have a Mac, you can use a service called ThinkBuddy, or you can follow these very detailed instructions on how to set up transcription so that you can just like talk to a computer and it will then talk to any AI model that you choose. If you're on a PC, then you can do the same. very detailed instructions. Again, if you'd like this document, feel free to sign up in my very sporadic newsletter and I will send it to you. Cool. All right, so let's get into this. I think most of you have done some level of prompting with AI, and I just want to have my way of suggestion of how to go about it. It's not the perfect way, it's just one way. So think of it as like an intern. So I've worked with an intern a few times in the past, and I know, and having learned the hard way, if I give a very ambiguous ask to my intern, then I will get a very ambiguous response. So if I say like, oh, go create me like a social media editorial calendar, and I don't specify anything else, then she created me one, but it was not great because she can't read my mind. So I like to think of AI as like another person on your team, an intern who knows a lot, but doesn't know you and doesn't know your business and doesn't know what's in your mind, right? So ideally, what you would want to do is be as specific as humanly possible. So here's what I suggest. It's a 10-step model. So we'll try to go one by one. And if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or just put the question in the chat. So the first thing is really make sure that your purpose is clear. And it could be that you just want to create like slides for a presentation. It could be that you want to write a LinkedIn post. You want to send a direct message, and you might think, oh, this is like overkill. It might be, and at the same time, the ideal outcome is going to be well articulated, because again, the AI doesn't have memory just yet. They're working on that. So it's not like even if you have interacted with it 100 times, it's going to know exactly what you want the 101st time. So that's the first thing, is have a clear goal in mind. Second thing is to be specific, like outline the details, the context, any specific requirements you might have. It might be giving some contextual understanding. So it might be, for example, okay, I just connected with this person on LinkedIn. Go read their bio, or you can copy paste their bio into the chat and say, this is someone that I want to have as a client. So like, otherwise AI is not going to know that, any AI model, regardless of who you choose. Whereas if you give it the clarity of purpose of what you're trying to do, is like, I want to interact with this person on social media through a direct message. I'm looking for this person to be a client. The more specific you are, the more contextual understanding the model has, the more likely it's gonna be like, oh, okay, I get what you're asking me. The more clear you can state, if you want a table, a paragraph, a list, any specific structure you want, the better it is. If you don't tell it, it will still output something. But I know anytime I tell it to create an email or a message without giving it specific output specifications, it's way longer and more formal than I want it to be. So, I could send it as is, but I never do, because I want to give it more information. So what
Can you tell it to be informal?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Elaine, thank you so much for that question. So yeah, the next task on your list, I would suggest, is to specify that the tone should be whether casual, creative, professional. My go-to is informative and or informal and or friendly. And you can add, mix and match, because that's just how I tend to speak. It's like, if I'm putting together a talk, I want it to be informative. So you can see probably more information than you need in this document, because I want you to be able to be self-serve. And after this session, if you learn nothing else from this, at least you can come back and be like, oh yeah, Lita said this, and I can reference this. So informative is one of my go-to tones. Informal. Friendly tends to give you a lot of like memes, or not memes, slang. So I sometimes go to a friendly, but informal gets the job done for me. So yeah, that's a great question. Another thing, again, I find that it tends to run long. Like, I'm a big proponent of short and sweet messages. whether you're sending it to people on social media, email, any format. I'm a big fan of short and sweet. Everyone has their preference. So it's way easier for the AI to know what you want if you say, hey, constrict this to a tweet length, or make this up to 199 words, or, you know, give me more details. So the more specificity you have around complexity as well, like put this in 5th grade language, the better the output will be. And then refine. Like this is like step 7, I think, is one of the most important, because even if you do all these steps, it doesn't mean you're going to get the best outcome. I think it's a great first draft of anything that I've put in, but anytime you have an area of improvement, you can already have a conversation. Again, think of it as like having a conversation with an intern or someone else on your team and say, hey, actually, I think that friendly has too much slang. Can you please adjust it to a more formal tone, or whatever it might be, or personalize it with this specific person's profile? Because then if someone has written their profile in a very informal way, then maybe I'm gonna want to talk to them in that way. But if they're like an executive and they've written very formally, then maybe you'd want to mirror that. So it very much depends on you.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes.
Are you resubmitting the prompt with more specificity, or are you actually commenting on the previous prompt with direction?
It's an and or for me. So if it's very off, then I tend to do the former, where I'm like, okay, actually, can we start again? And this is the email I want. Here are the specifications. If it's kind of in the ballpark, then I say, okay, cool. Can you adjust this? Like one thing, like very simply, I can tell you, like, I love contractions. So I'm a big fan of saying I'm versus I am. So even if, you know, like the AI generates a response for me, that's not how I talk a lot of the time, even if I tell it all the things like tone, whatever. So it might say like I am, I have, like using all the full tenses. And I find that that's not conversationally even how I email. So to your point, I could say adjust every indication of this to contractions. Example, I am to I'm. So that's one example. Or if it's like completely off the mark, then I'm like, okay, let's redo this. Let's go to the beginning. Hopefully that helps. Marta, what's your question? Thank you for your
more so, I wanted to add to that point. I've been really working with ChatGPT lately in some of like putting out offers and that language around that. And a lot of the time, like it'll give me this very sort of prepared, like join me on this transformative journey. And so I think, to follow up on your point, like I have been telling my ChatGPT, like don't use the words and in quote like transformative, but like convey that idea. So like oftentimes it'll come up with these automated messages and you read them and you're like, this isn't exactly how I talk. And so I give snippets of either like my newsletter or a blog post or something in which I do talk in my natural voice and say, analyze this as my like tone of voice and the way I talk, and implement this into what I'm trying to say without using the words, and then telling it directly what not to use so that the message is really conveyed, rather than reusing the same thing that I'm trying to refine later.
That's an awesome addition. Thank you. I will say one benefit also of paying is that you can save that. So to Marta's point, like if she says, this is my brand voice, or this is my messaging style, or whatever, you can create a saved, and that's when the whole memory concept of AI comes into play. So if you pay them, they unlock that ability so that you don't have to like regurgitate that every single time. That's one of the kind of like that 1% aspect of like going from the 99% to 100%, what premium unlocks for you. But you could just like, I have a bunch of things that I still have to remind it, even though I have created like a little ChatGPT shortcut for what I like and what I don't like. And yeah, to her point, maybe there's words that you don't like to say and they're not on brand for you, and there's things that how you phrase things and you do want. And similarly with images, maybe there's certain colors you stay away from and there's other ones that you love. It's like, so you can bring that up every time or save it if you have premium. Cool. So yeah, using feedback from the responses that you get to enhance the effectiveness of your prompts is another layer. Like if you notice that it's totally just not giving you a response, then you could see, okay, I'm hitting some of the edges of the model. So for instance, I know that last tax year, to double check my accountant, I went in and I'm like, act as if you were a CPA and what would be the taxes due for this? And I put like all my numbers. And back then the model was still okay with giving you an answer. Now, if I ask that, it's going to say, please go talk to a CPA, because again, the folks, all the developers at all these companies, not just OpenAI, have been told, okay, reel it in, because people have found that they can get a lot of answers, and a lot of the time it's not perfect. So you'll notice that maybe, okay, maybe I'm hitting one of the edges of the model and what it can provide me. So you can also incorporate that in what you do ask or do not ask. Yeah, so that's also another thing. Like, is this relevant? So if it's a text-based AI, then it's hard for you to ask it to create you like a logo or something. But if you then, go to an image generation AI, then of course you can ask. So always also think of like the limitations there might be. And last but not least, consider if there's other methods that might be quicker. Like I honestly spent so much time in the image generation world that in the end, I just like paid somebody to create a logo for me, because yeah, like nothing is free really. If it takes your time, it's still you're paying for it with your time. So there's certain elements, like I've noticed, especially in image generation, AI still has an issue with like generating human faces, human bodies. With writing, it's terrible. So for in this case, with a logo, I wanted it to have some text, and there would always be some issues with it. So in the end, I kind of was like, okay, well, this is no longer an efficient use of my time. And I just got a designer to help me with it. So that's the framework I would suggest. It's just one way to interact with an AI tool like ChatGPT. And then this is the last kind of thing we'll go through, and then I'm happy to go over some other tools I've found and address some questions. So if you have questions, feel free to bring them up as well. Cool. So that was like the 10-step like that you can follow every time. And I would say effective prompting involves just keeping in mind that if you introduce yourself or the character in mind, so in case it's like a client, you can give their unique persona or background. Like you could say, oh, like pretend you're speaking to, your ideal client. So it could be, somebody in their mid-50s who is an executive and has issues with thriving at work due to ADHD. And then craft a message. It doesn't mean that the AI is going to be perfect at that, but it has been trained to understand what each of those elements of a persona or background are. So it's just going to be more likely for it to respond in a way that's going to be more in the ballpark of what you're looking for than if you just like don't tell it anything. Again, there's limitations with this. Like once you get to the medical realm, the legal realm, accounting realm, just like think any regulated realm, then the models have been trained as of this year, again, to kind of not tell you specific answers. So if you tell it, oh, okay, ask my CPA this question, or it could be answer this question from like my medical doctor's perspective. Like there's certain identities that it's kind of considered off limits because it doesn't want to give responses that would trigger people to like be in compromised situations where they're like, oh, I don't owe any taxes. And then people go and sue the makers of these AI bots because they, the IRS doesn't agree with that, for example. But for outside of that world of regulation, you can establish an identity, whether yourself or the person on the other side, and you could say like, talk to this person, or I am this type of person, like Marta had said very astutely, like, this is my brand voice, so please use this going forward. You can provide background information. So again, sharing that context or details to generate more accurate responses. Setting the tone and style, like we mentioned, tailoring the content to your preferences, outlining the task restraints. So you could specify rules, you could specify formatting, like you could create tables, you could do whatever floats your boat within reason. I think there's still limitations. You can also use examples, like you could say, here's how I've sent a direct message to this person in the past. Like, use this as your jumping off point. You could infuse it with personal touches. So again, using the language that's aligned with the context. Offering iterative guidance. So refining the prompts based on the responses. Painting the picture of what that scenario is so that you allow it to tailor the responses accordingly. Framing the questions appropriately, and then just mindfully using it. So it's kind of a summary of what we went through in the past. Great. Okay, so I think someone also sent me a question earlier, which I will ask. I would love to hear your thoughts at some point regarding why I chose Substack. Okay, from my zine. Okay, so yes, I will address that. Cool. So that's the gist of what I wanted to share with you. If you'd like this document, feel free to sign up. And even though the person's question is like outside the realm of AI, it's very much in point with Substack. So Substack is a newsletter service that a lot of great content creators are on right now, from journalists to musicians to, coaches. And I moved away from MailChimp, my email service provider, to Substack, just because I found that this way it has a lot of transparency, both with my audience. So every single post I create is public in some way. I mean, some of them are paid posts, but for the majority of it, someone could just go to my Substack and see 90+% of the posts, like the 10%, let's say, are the paid or premium posts. So that doesn't work for everybody. Like, if you're trying to keep your content in a confined space, then I would recommend like an email service provider like ConvertKit, MailChimp. There's like hundreds out there. I have no personal preferences. I just work with one that works for you. But I like to get away from that just because I want people to have a sense of like what I've written in the past. And what's great is, even though someone could join my list today, they can go back all the way to 2020 because I didn't upload everything since before that, but all the way back to 2020 and look at all the posts I'd written in the archives in one spot. So that's another benefit of it. So that's what I like about Substack. Let me share some other tools with you that I came across recently. This is also, in case people know Yayoi Kusama, this is some AI generated images based on an arcade in the Kusama style. So you can see there's a lot of ways you could use AI. I really, for the most part, I would say I appreciate it a lot. Cool. Okay, so this is something that I referenced before, and thanks, Eva. I will get to your question right after this. So if you have a Mac and you like to have your Mac talk to you and then talk to the AI, you can either follow the instructions that I had here to do so, prompting without typing, or there's a tool for it as well, so that you can have your Mac in a way listen and read and engage with you. I think that's a little beyond what I'm looking for, so I haven't signed up, but if you like that, then feel free to use that. Able is like reviewing legal records. So I know that I like to put any kind of legal document I'm ever signing or into ChatGPT or other AIs, but if you use that a lot, I know for me it's not so often, but if you want to use that a lot faster, then you could use this tool. I have a product management background, so that's what I've done, and I've been in the tech space for over 15 years. So for me, a tool like this is amazing, like accelerating your product discovery. So doing a lot of customer and client interviews, and then actually being able to analyze those interviews and synthesize like where are there opportunities for me to get clients is really helpful. So this is a tool that I recently found out about that's really
Can you
awesome.
explain that a little bit more? Because you
Yeah, this
speak
is a
tech
very
in a way I don't.
Yeah, sure. So it's a very niche area. So for me, for example, I'm a newer coach in the sense that I've been doing it part-time for years, and I just started doing it full-time since end of last year. So I wanted to get people's perspective on my coaching website. So what I did is I did interviews with half a dozen people in my community that are like prospective clients, and I asked for their feedback on like various drafts of my website. And then rather than recording every single session and taking notes, because I like to be very present, just like I am now, I use a tool like this to then analyze all those interviews and then synthesize where the opportunities are. So I used it to create my coaching website. So if you're doing a lot of discovery calls, then this could be a way that, again, if you're able to record them, then this is a tool that I would suggest.
So is what you're saying, you record something and then you upload the recording?
Yes. So I wouldn't recommend this for like coaching sessions. I would recommend this for
But
user
for discovery sessions, if we were doing a ton of discovery sessions.
Yes, this is a tool I would recommend for that, as long as the person is okay with obviously being recorded. Yeah. Yes. So Eve asked what tool I would use for image generation. I like CoPilot is decent. This is like a funny like little thing I put in right before the call that compared day in your life as an AI to a type of pasta. And then it was like, this is my day. So CoPilot, which is from Microsoft, is decent at image generation. ChatGPT is also good, but again, you have to have the paid version of these to get the image generation. So that's what I would suggest. It turns out that literally today, they are launching a new version of Gemini. Gemini is from Google. Again, I just put like a funny, like, oh, right, an out of office message. So the Gemini one, also you used to have to pay to create images. I believe that as of today, you can start getting access to that. And again, if you drop your email on that link, then I can send that to you, because it just got launched like today. I literally read it like 10 minutes before the session, so I could send you all the details. But otherwise, the three I recommend are Gemini, ChatGPT, and CoPilot for image generation. Okay, cool. Let's see what. Okay. Tanika, thank you. I would for you have please everybody put your email in the actual Substack, just so that I'm following all the GDPR rules and everything. I can't just like grab people's emails, because it needs to like show that you gave consent and all that good stuff.
So where is that in Substack, or is that the link?
It's just the link. It's lidat.substack.com. And then if you sign up after this session, I will create all this, because all this is all brand new information. I'll create a summary and I'll send it to the folks who are interested, along with the document that I share. Great. Okay. Another tool that I recommend, if you schedule a lot of meetings, and like it has to be a lot of meetings. I'm a big fan of using Calendly, so I haven't used this tool. But if you're like, I don't know, having 50 meetings a week or something, and they might move a lot or something like that, then I would use Sidekick. This is one that's really great for adults and kids as well. So if you create some notes, and then you want to create a deck of cards, like it's card with a K, just think of it as like when I used to physically write them out, like the cards to study. But I know I'm a visual person, so I'm actually curious to try this out. So creating flashcards for any purpose. I haven't tried it out yet, but it seems pretty cool. Awesome. Thank you to everybody direct messaging me with emails. Again, please put them into lidat@.substack.com, because I love following the rules of email consent. So I can't take your email and send it to you unless I have your consent, and messaging me and DMing me on the chat unfortunately doesn't count as that. So great. Another tool I would recommend that I haven't used yet is Graft. Again, for these ones like Sidekick and Graft, you need to really be like advanced in the sense that you are wanting to take all admin off your schedule. Like you don't want to worry about rescheduling any single meeting, then use Sidekick. If you don't want to worry about any kind of like predictive AI and you have a bunch of teammates, then I would use Graft. Another one that I touched on at the very beginning.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what Graft does, or I
Graft
missed what Graft does.
Graft is basically combining like search and generative AI, so that like think of it as like I keep thinking of saying like CoPilot, but CoPilot is a model already, but think of it as like an AI assistant. But I would only recommend this again for the top like advanced users, because I honestly don't need it either. If you don't have a huge team, you probably don't need to use this, but I just wanted to share with folks who, if they do and they work in a big organization, then this is one I would recommend, because then you can share your resources in a team fashion a lot more seamlessly than all the other tools, because the other tools are meant more for like an individual, let's say solopreneur. Cool. The final one I would recommend is Claude.ai. So Claude.ai is one of the models that's catching up very fast to ChatGPT. I'll just show you again. You could see that it's much newer in the sense that it wasn't launched till I think this last year, like late last year, but it's already almost at the level of being or even beating ChatGPT for certain things like summarizing, critiquing, market sizing, lead generation, doing all the great things on biz dev like lead scoring, etc. So if those are relevant to you, then I would recommend signing up. And again, all three of these start out free. If you really need to, they're all $20 a month premium. So what I would suggest is, if you like using AI, sign up to all three. You could also add CoPilot as a fourth if you really want to. But for now, for today, if you want to just pick one, based on all the studies that I've seen, ChatGPT is still winning, but it could be that Claude or Gemini or CoPilot beat it. So I try to give you like the latest and greatest information. Great. So we have 10 minutes left for this session. So if there's any other questions that came up, I know I shared a lot of information with you, so please let me know if you have any other questions for me.
Yes, I do have a question, Lida.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all your information. Do you have any, practical hint on how to copy anything from ChatGPT without, I copy it, put it in WhatsApp, so I don't have this format thing around and I can work with it. Is there any other way?
The easiest way is to do paste without formatting. So I don't know what the shortcut for that is, but let me just Google it really quickly. That's what I do is, so you could do, on Mac it's Command-Shift-V, and on Windows is Control-Shift-V. So this is the easiest way that I have seen. I'll put it in the chat as well.
Would you be willing to pull up a ChatGPT screen and just kind of show us and share your screen and show us when you're starting to do something?
Yeah, of course. Let me do that. All right.
Because I just haven't even figured out how to use the basic screen well. So I feel like I start over again and again and again because I don't know how to modify, for
Okay.
example.
Yeah, no worries. So let's say, okay, I'm in like trip planning mode because I have a big trip coming up. So I could say, share a 5-day itinerary for the Azores Islands in August. Because it's peak season, I try not to travel peak season, but it turns out that this year we're traveling peak season. So this is something like very simple where, again, I'm not going through every single of the 10 steps that I shared with you just for the sake of time, but you notice that it gives you already a decent start. So it's like, okay, day 1, arrive in San Miguel, which is one of the islands, do this stuff morning, afternoon, evening. Awesome. Day 2, whatever. And I'm like, okay, great. You're telling me where to go, like it looks like just locations, but maybe I want it to recommend like places to eat. So then I could say, oh, okay, you don't have to write okay, but I like to like talk to it as if
Talk
I'm
to
a
it.
as if it's a person. So it's like, okay, add casual eating spots for each day. Yeah, let's start there. So then it tells you a specific place, like go to have a traditional Zorian breakfast at Cafe Central in this place. In the afternoon, do this. So maybe I then decide, okay, cool, this is helpful, but like I want it to all be limited to one island. Because right now it's kind of telling me like, go to, it looks like 2 different islands. Yeah, it's on 2 different islands. Okay, limit everything to Terceira. And then let's see if it's smart enough and it takes out all the other things. So then it takes out everything else, it looks like. And I'll
So are
see.
there keywords like you just use add and limit? Are there is there a key list of words that you can use to kind of redirect and navigate? And what was the word you use? The iterative refinement. What are
yeah,
words
so
you use for refinement?
I feel like I kind of talk to it as if it's a human. So it depends, but I would say what I tend to do is I tend to give it some context. I mean, this is a quick example, right? So it doesn't need to like have tone, etc. But I try to give it like short, snappy requests and then see, like that's my style. I'd rather like be quick with it. So I'm like, okay, I like what you did there and adjust this, right? So there's a lot of keywords that I would say, like, for example, adjust is one, adjust it all to 3 days. I would say improve is one. Like, I'm a big fan of like improve this email. That's like my go-to. I think I've done this many times. Let's actually go into like see what I've created. Like, so like I didn't actually use this, but in case you were wondering, I was like, okay, summarize this, and this is everything that's in the document I was going to share with you. So summarize is one of my like top 5 words because I put a lot of stuff in there. I tend to be long-winded. And then it's like, okay, this is the summary of your talk. I'm like, okay, awesome. Create a friendly script for a live webinar about this. It's very meta. Now we're talking about AI on AI. So then it created like a script for me that I did not use, but it like was like opening scene. You appear on the screen with a friendly smile, all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, thank you, but no, thank you. But you could see even today, I've used it several times. So see, summarize is like my go-to. I'm a big like, put a lot of text and then tell me what.
So would you say summarize in paragraph form or summarize in bullet form? Is that an example
Yeah,
of
you could do that.
focusing? Okay.
So yeah, I kind of put these 2 queries in like 5 and 10 minutes before the session. I was like, okay, summarize this so I know like what would people get out of this session, and create a script. I was curious what it would say, and then I didn't use it, but yeah. So summarize is one of the big ones for me. Adjust, improve. Those are like my top 3. But it really depends on like your use case for it. So yeah. Okay,
Thank
Adam had
you.
a question. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for your great questions, Elaine. Adam had a question in the chat. Have you created a custom GPT for the steps you use to generate, for example, a LinkedIn post for business steps? I haven't specifically for generating LinkedIn posts. I haven't created a custom GPT because every time what I use ChatGPT for, or Claude or CoPilot. It depends on the day. But ChatGPT is kind of my go-to. I use it as like my crappy first draft for everything. LinkedIn that I write. So I put in a lot of like what I'm thinking, like you saw, and then I'm like, summarize this and create it into a LinkedIn message. So if I have a very formulaic style, then I would create a custom GPT for, LinkedIn posts for biz dev. I feel that because my style is not super formulaic, like do one, then two, then three, like I post about different things. So I like to keep it fresh every time. But that's a great, like if you are using the same formula to reach out to clients, then that's a great way that you could use ChatGPT.
Can I ask about how you could use ChatGPT with Canva? So right now, I'm in
Yeah.
Canva. I'm
Yeah.
working on a proposal.
Yes.
Could I ask ChatGPT to help me generate this proposal, to help me kind of give me an idea? What I'm doing is I'm like looking at a question, asking ChatGPT to see how they would respond, and then I'm forming my own response because I don't want to sound like everyone else. So you just can't use it, but it's to kind of help you think.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Canva has its own inbuilt like AI. It's not as strong, I would say. And also Adobe Express has Firefly. Like everyone under the sun is trying to create their own thing. And at the same time, a lot of them are using ChatGPT as a plugin. So what I would say is like, this is how I would do things because I like to like already know what I'm going to say. Then I like to go create it in visual formatting. So for example, like to be very specific, I can share with you like what, like this is a very, it's not at all as complex as what you're talking about. But for example, like I wanted to adjust like, and post on LinkedIn about what I'm about today, right? So I posted yesterday saying I'm speaking online tomorrow and do this thing. So this is the kind of thing that I use Canva for. So my use of Canva is pretty basic because I like to use the AI tools for image generation. But to your point, if you're creating a proposal, what I would do is I would look up proposal like templates that you like, and you could say, you could put a giant template in there. Like you could Google like, okay, proposal template for large enterprise for coaching solution as an example. And then like something would come up. Then I would feed that into any AI and I would say, okay, adjust this, use my tone, don't use these words, use these words, and then see what it comes up with and say, create it in a table or whatever. Like if you have different parts that you want visualized, and then on the screen you'll see a version that ChatGPT would create. And if you have premium on any of these, it can do a visual. But again, it's very, very limited with text right now because the models are not advanced enough. So that's when I would take it from there to Canva and then do your magic with like making it look visual and all that. So I like to feed it how I like to do it. It's not the way, but I like to feed it some information because it's like, that's the food for it, is the training, right? So it's like, okay, here's a template that someone else has if I don't have it. So in my case, I was like, summarize this thing that I put together. So like, take the learnings from this, make it into my tone of voice and how I speak. And then once it generates something for you that's good enough, then I would go and visually kind of create it. So does that?
Yeah, that's helpful. And I've heard about people, thank you, using AI for like to create videos and whatnot. Are these different tools? Is this ChatGPT or are these different tools that you?
It is. So there's it's called like a red team, who is allowed to have access to video. I wish I was part of it. It's probably like, I don't know, under 100 people in the world or something. I don't know how small it is, but it's very small. Because think of if this falls in the wrong hands, you could create deep fake videos in an election year, especially in the US, that I would say large majority of people, 90+% of people would not be able to tell are fake. So yes, the technology is out there and it is super limited, especially, and this is kind of my take on it due to the timing of where we're at right now, where the use of fake videos could be very detrimental. So I'm hoping that, you know, they open that up soon. Because I would love to use it. I've paid a video editor like hundreds of dollars to create a 2-minute video for me recently. So I'm like, you know, I would love to pay $20 a month and have the tool create it. So yes, it exists, but no one I know has access to it. Yeah.
Well, and lastly, can you upload your own content into ChatGPT, like the free version? If I've written something, I've written a number of things, can I upload that so that it can remember me and know my tone of voice when I ask it to do something?
For the free version, you can upload it. It won't remember you. For the paid version, then it will remember you, because that's where the whole custom GPT concept comes into play. So it can be a little annoying if you have to keep reminding it. But yeah, that's what you unlock with the $20 a month, and you can cancel anytime. And again, I'm not telling anyone to go out and get it, but if you notice that the free model isn't doing it for you, then you could at least test it and then just cancel if it's not doing what you want. Cool. All right. Any final questions before we wrap for the day? Elaine, thank you. Yeah.
And I signed up, and I look forward to you sending this so that I have time, because you may have ADHD, but your processing speed is wicked fast.
Thank you. It's like one of the blessings and curses of ADHD, because I'm like,
well, some ADHD. I have ADHD too, and my processing speed is really slow. So just depends.
Life is lifing, you know.
I think I have more of a comment.
Yes.
Tanika, thank you so much. I just did a proposal and I just didn't even think about putting it in, because it was my first proposal. I'm just starting my business, and like, thank you for the applause. It was a moment, but also I was like, I just had to be brave and just put it out there, but I don't think it was that great. So I thank you. I didn't think about that. And then I also wanted to comment, because I don't remember, was it Elaine that you had initially asked? I use ChatGPT so far for my website, because I've been using ChatGPT wherever I get stuck. If I get stuck and I'm not really sure where to start, Tanika, the way you were describing it, I love that too, because I feel like it's a collaborator where I'm out here on my own and I don't have coworkers in my space anymore. And me personally, I think understanding like your working style, I do so much better when like there's something for me to start with, or there's somebody for me to talk to. And I just thought that's helped me out. So I wanted to offer that if it helps.
Yes, thank you so much. I feel like that was a great summary of what we talked about. So yeah, thank you, Clarissa. Thank you, Tanika, Elaine, Eve, Irina, Nina, Sonali, May, Adam, everybody here. Thank you so much for being here. All the folks who, you know, even if you felt like, oh, okay, this is overwhelming, if you learn nothing else other than just seeing it, like Clarissa said, as like an ally, as a collaborator, as an intern, whatever kind of model helps you. Some people even like, I don't condone this, but like use it as their therapist. You know, like I would say like go get a therapist if you need one. But like you can really, instead of thinking of it like, oh, my job is going to get replaced by AI, think of it as like, oh, look how much time I can save. And look, I now have like this coworker, colleague, whatever, even though it's virtual, you can really almost throw a lot at it. It's not going to be great. It's one of those, you know, think of it as like, that's why I kind of use as an intern. It's like trying its best. It doesn't have the context. It doesn't have as much experience. But if you throw the task at it, there's a lot of administrative logistics, like text-based tasks that I would say the model is really great at. For image generation, etc., it's not so great right now. But if we speak this time next year, I feel like it's going to be great. So just think of it as like your buddy in the corner. And I know I'm telling you, I use it like multiple times a day. And that's how you will also flex this muscle of feeling more comfortable. So like, it's okay, you forgot to like throw your proposal out at this time, but next time around, you're like, okay, let me try it out. And yeah, definitely play. There's nowhere you can break it. So definitely just try the what we talked about today. Try your style. mine is the Lida way. Each of you is going to have your own way of interacting with it. So that would be what I would leave you with today. So definitely think of it as like something you can flex like a muscle. And the more you use it, the better you get at it.
Hey, Lita, I like your screen share when I how you appear with the content. What are you using something special like an AI?
No, but you know what's really cool? Again, it's a find from today. So if you go to share your screen, so let me show you the different ways. It's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. It's within Zoom. So like this is the way that I've always shared my screen, which is like this way, right? Like it minimizes me, which is perfectly fine. And then there's a little tool that this is the way I did it, this time. And then there's another way that I haven't
I
used yet.
love that.
This will
Yeah,
be
but
the first time.
what are you
I'm
doing
Yep.
for it to show like that?
It's just a Zoom feature.
Yeah, it's literally the share screen. And again, what's really cool is like the more you use this stuff, the more you notice all these Easter eggs of all these products are like if you think you're stressed, just think if you're like in a tech role in one of these companies, because everybody is telling their tech people, okay, we're like behind in AI. So there's a bunch of tools that are now like just dropping little Easter eggs, and Zoom is one of them. Like the AI companion, I've enabled it.
Yeah.
So sorry?
Sorry, what is that?
It's
I
just
was
the
just
share
reacting.
screen button in
I'll
Zoom.
mute.
You just hit it more than once and it gives you different views?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like the more you interact with AI, the more you'll see that there's all these new features dropping in every product, ranging from Zoom to Canva to all the ones we talked about. Another one in Zoom that I'll plug is AI Companion. So if you have that on, then I know what I'll do right after this is I'm going to use that to generate a summary for this, because I've never shared any of these tools with other people because they're all brand new. So I'll go back, grab the links that I talked about, share with everybody. So those are a couple of other like Zoom hacks. Is share screen is now brand new with the view that Tanika mentioned, and AI Companion is like a summary of notes. So those are two cool newish features.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for being here. I'll be in touch with this, the replay and the summary. Don't feel overwhelmed. I know I shared a lot of information with you, and just try one step at a time and you're going to do great. I believe in you. All right. Thank you all. Bye for now.